So next class of drug in anti-cancer therapy is your hormones. So hormones also can be used, hormone therapy also can be used as anti-neoplastic agent. Okay, so let's have an introduction basically. So around 60 of to 70% of patients with breast cancer are estrogen positive receptors. That means they have 60% also have estrogen receptor, positive estrogen receptor. What do you mean by positive estrogen? They have overexpression of this estrogen receptor. When there is overexpression of estrogen receptor, more estrogen binds, and this, as you know, your estrogen when it binds to the receptor, that leads to your transcription and more cell division. Okay, it stimulates various growth factors which leads to your cell multiplication. So that is known as ER receptor positive. That is known as ER receptor positive. Patient with estrogen receptor have better survival than estrogen negative, known estrogen receptor. So estrogen negative, there is one more known as estrogen negative. That means that particular patient does not have estrogen receptors. So basically we work on the estrogen receptor positive patients. So there is 10% better survival for your estrogen positive receptors. Okay, why? Because you can control this receptor by blocking it, whereas negative means there is no way that you can control. So the survival rate is better in case of estrogen receptor positive. Patients with estrogen receptor positive are the candidates for your hormonal therapy. So this is very much important, whether the patient is estrogen receptor positive or negative, that plays. So according to that, then you can design your hormone therapy. With the patients with estrogen receptor positive syndrome or symptoms can be treated by hormone replacement therapy or hormonal therapy. So what are the agents used in hormonal therapy? You got your progestins like prednisolone, megestrol, estrogen like estrogen and its analogs like diethylstilbestrol and ethinyl estradiol. Okay, SERM, selective estrogen receptor maintenance. Okay, modulator like anti-estrogens like tamoxifen and tamoxifen. We have studied it. Androgens like testosterone can be used. Anti-androgens like flutamide, there is aromatase inhibitor, lancestrol. They all can be used in your hormonal therapy. So what are the sites of actions of this hormone? So your hypothalamus is where your uh, gonads receptor hormones are present. So that then you are in the pituitary glands, your luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormones are secreted, and which then goes to your ovaries. So where it gets converted into your androstenedione, which internals get converted to your estradiol by your aromatase enzyme. So if you see, your luteinizing hormone analogs, receptor hormones analogs can be used to stop the synthesis of by negative feedback effect on your gonadotropins. Okay, your androgen aromatase inhibitor can prevent the conversion of your androgen into estradiol, and you know estradiol is a major, when they did the study it was found that estrogen is the major contributor for your breast cancer. Overexpression of your estrogen led to your breast cancer. So that the main focus was to block the excess of estrogen in our body. So this is the major target for your hormone drug therapy. These are the sites of action for hormone drug therapy. Okay, now let's go further. So what are the bases? So how do you do? So as I said, overexpression of estrogen is seen in large number of breast cancer. ER positive means there are overexpression. Means overexpression means more estrogen gets bind to the receptor, and that leads to your increased transcription. So what you do? You try to block it. You try to block the receptor so that instead of your estrogen like receptors bind to that this and inactivate it. So some of the examples are your diethyl stilbene. So they are analogs to your estrogen. Similarly to it is ethinyl estradiol. Ethinyl estradiol contains your ethylenic group at your 17th position. Ethylenic group at your 17th Estrogen hormone. Estrogen is a steroid hormone. Estrogen is and profound proliferative effect on the normal human mammary epithelial cells through its activation through estrogen receptor alpha, a classic nuclear hormone receptor. So these are nuclear hormone receptor and exerts its action with both genomical and non-genomic. So there are two methods through which your estrogens can. Now let's go one by one. So classical genomic mechanism is what? See, now estrogen binds with your intracellular receptor, estrogen receptors. Once it binds, it dimerizes with another estrogen receptors. Okay, estrogen binds with the first with your estrogen receptor, which is intracellular. This again dimerizes with another estrogen receptor. This estrogen receptor complex translocates into the nucleus. So this dimer that is formed, you saw heat stop proteins which are present, they bind with. That changes the configuration, it is removed and it enters your nucleus. Then binds with the estrogen response elements. So there is an estrogen response element which are present within the nucleus. And once this complex binds with the estrogen receptor, this leads to your transcription. So this is how your classical method of your how estrogen acts in your. So first one the intracellular, then it form dimerases, then it enters into your nucleoplasm where it binds with your estrogen response elements, which leads to your transcription, which are present on your DNA, and this leads to your transcription. That is your classical genomic method. So now second method of its activation is non-classical genomic mechanism. Second is non-classical genomic mechanism. So what happens? The estrogen binds to your membrane bound estrogen receptors. This leads to your secondary messenger systems are activated. So this they will activate secondary messenger systems. Okay. Now what are third step? The molecules. So whatever the secondary signals that are generated, they secrete some molecules, and this binds to the DNA regulatory regions such as cyclic AMP response element, serum response elements regions to activate transcription. So these are some of the agents groups which are present in the DNA. So this leads to your transcription. These secondary messengers, see, they will activate your cyclic AMP, which leads to your activation of the cyclic AMP response elements, which are present in your DNA. Serum response elements, which are also in the regions in the DNA, which activate your transcriptions of your DNA. So this is non-classical. Now let's go for the next. Non-genomic. That was genomic. Now this is non-genomic. So it is believed to result from the hormone-dependent activation of membrane-bound or systolic bound estrogen receptors. This non-nuclear estrogen, non-nuclear means outside the nucleus. Non-nucleus estrogen action results by varied rapid phosphorylation and activation of important growth regulator kinases. So since growth regulator kinases, they are present in their secondary method. They are present in our nucleoplasm, sorry, cytoplasm, which includes your estrogen receptor, regulating factor, IGF factor, EC, SRS and SHS. These are all the regulatory proteins which are present in our cells, which control your transcription. They lead to your transcription externally. So this they get activated when this estrogen bind to your receptors on the membrane. Okay, so this is the mechanism of action. MAP kinase, all these are activators that lead to your cell proliferation and survival. You can see it in the diagram how this drug acts. Okay, now let's go for the first class of drug, that is selective estrogen receptor modulator. Selective estrogen receptor SERMs. So what are these SERMs? The first example is tamoxifen. Tamoxifen. So it's the first hormonal drug approved by the FDA for the usage of breast cancer. So chemical it is what? You got triphenylethylene group. Triphenyl, you got a double bond with the triphenyl group attached to it and one ethyl. Okay. Now one of the phenyl contains an dimethyl amino ethyl ether. Okay, so it contains N,N-dimethyl amino ethyl ether inhibitor. Okay, so this is connected to your O phenolic group is connected to your N,N-dimethyl ethyl amino ether. Okay, so that is your structure of tamoxifen. Mechanism of action: it competitive binding to the estrogen, resulting in reduction in transcription of estrogen regulated genes. So this will bind to your estrogen, resulting in reduction in transcription of estrogen regulated genes. As you see, whatever genes are responsible for your oversynthesis of estrogen can be modulated. It also blocks the cell cycle in G1 phase, that is initiation of your protein synthesis is blocked. Okay, in the G1 phase, where your new proteins are synthesized, which are necessary for your development of your DNA, they are all over. So this particular SERMs act on the G1 phase. That is it is a cytostatic drug. So it prevents your development of your proteins and necessary for your development of your proteins in the cell is inhibited. That is, initiation of your cell cycle is only inhibited. So that is your example of your SERMs. First example. Now, anti-estrogens. What do you mean by anti-estrogens? Example is fulvestrant. Okay, fulvestrant. So here the structure is similar to your estrogen. Only thing that your position at 7th position, it contains an long chain, alkyl substituted long chain. So it is C2H9, SO, sulfone, again CH2 3 and C2F3. Okay, this is your molecule. So there are totally how many carbons on the side chain or the 7th position? 9, then 12. So there are around 14 carbons. The first 9 then connected to your sulfone, connected to your CH2 to 3-methylene group, and the terminal is C2F3. Okay, so this is the structure of fulvestrant. They are analogs of your estrogens. They are analogs of your estrogen. So they act as anti-estrogens. Now what are these anti-estrogens? So your estrogen binds to your receptor, then your complexation takes. So instead of your estrogen binding to your receptors, your anti-estrogens bind. So then what happens? Then this, when it binds to your selective portion in a DNA, so this will not be read properly. So DNAs do not get a proper signaling. So there will be no gene activation. There will be no transcription. This is how your anti-estrogens act. Now let's go to the further mechanism. So that is fulvestrant. It is an steroidal anti-estrogen. Why it is called anti-estrogen? Because it's structural similar to that of your estrogen moiety. Okay, considerably have higher affinity for your estrogen receptor than your tamoxifen, promotes accelerated ER turnover. So your estrogen receptor gets blocked. Okay, suppression of estrogen receptor protein level. So whatever proteins which are synthesized from your estrogen complexing is reduced. Inhibition of your estrogen receptor dimerase, as we said in your classical genomic method, they requires dimerization. Once your estrogen enters into the intercellular region, then it dimerizes with the another estrogen. So this is blocked by your anti-estrogens. Reduces shuttling of your estrogen from your cytoplasm into your, so this also prevents the entry of your estrogen receptor from the cytoplasm into your nucleus, and if it does not enter the nucleus, then your transcription is blocked. So this is how your anti-estrogens act. This is how your anti-estrogens act. So usually given as an anti-insulin depots. It is given as an depots, where it gets slowly released from your muscles to your body. So it is basically used in a developed to counter the estrogenic effect of tamoxifen on uterus and bone related effects of your aromatase inhibitor. So basically it is given to control the negative effects of your SERMs and your estrogen aromatase inhibitors. Now comes the next class of drug, that is aromatase inhibitor. What is this aromatase? This aromatase is present in your body, in your ovary, which converts your testosterone into your estrogen. Okay, this is where your androgens can convert it into your estrogens, where your androgens gets converted into your, this is the last step in your steroidal biosynthesis. So this aromatase converts your testosterone or its analogs into your estrogen. Okay, some of the examples of aromatase inhibitors are letrozole, anastrozole, and imidazole. So what does this do? So this androstenedione, okay, it's in the peripheral tissue subcutaneous of fat, liver, and muscle in brain. So what does this aromatase do? So aromatase converted into your estrone, and this estrone gets converted into your estradiol. Now, similarly, the testosterone gets converted by aromatase to your estradiol. So when this aromatase inhibitor are present, this enzyme is blocked. So your testosterone does not get converted into your estradiol. Okay, this is how it acts. Now, where does tamoxifen acts? Tamoxifen acts by blocking the estrogen receptors, by blocking the estrogen receptor which are present. So this is how it can regulate your estrogen related dimerization, okay, and does inhibit your cell uh, division or cell multiplication. So this is the mechanism of action of the. So examples, yeah, we have studied it before. Anastrozole contains your triazole ring which is connected by methylenic group. Okay, triazole 1 2 4, 1 to 4 triazole which is connected to your benzene ring by a methylenic group which contains an tertiary group at the meta position, dimethyl cyano group. Okay, dimethyl cyano group at the meta position, dimethyl cyano group at the meta position. Okay, now next is letrozole. Next is letrozole. This also contains 1 2 4 triazole, but there is no methylene direct. It is connected directly to by a CH group to a cyano para 4 cyanobenzene. Okay, 4 cyano group. Okay, that is your. So these are non-steroidal type 2 aromatase. Now steroidal inactivators are imistine. Imistine. So what is this imistine? It is an OH over there, carbonyl group. Okay, it contains an double bond, extra double bond, and it's an OH over there. Okay, not OH. So double bond between 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. And at the sixth position there is an CH2 group. Okay, ethylene group at your sixth position. Rest all thing, and it resembles to your estrone. It resembles to your estrone. It resembles to your estrone moiety of your. So this is an example of steroidal type of aromatase inhibitor. It is a steroidal type of aromatase inhibitor. So these are the non-steroidal and steroidal examples of your aromatase inhibitor. So as I said, it inhibits the enzyme aromatase that and does the peripheral conversion of androgens. Androgens into unit by the process of aromatization is inhibited. There are two types available: steroidal and non-steroidal. Steroidal is imistine, which contains analog to your estrone. Their irreversible inhibition, a permanent and deactivating bond between the, so it's a permanent inhibitor. Non-steroidal inhibitors are letrozole and anastrozole. Okay, they are reversible inhibition. They cause reversible. They can be removed also. They inhibit the synthesis of estrogen via reversible competition with your for your aromatase. So they are the reversible competitor for your aromatase. So your steroidal are permanent, whereas your non-steroidals are reversible. They can be removed. Okay. So these are the examples of aromatase inhibitor. Now, luteinizing hormone regulatory hormone analogs. Luteinizing hormone regulatory hormone analogs are, so this, what are these luteinizing hormone? They are analogs that activate a growth hormone gonadotropin regulatory hormones receptors, resulting in increased secretion of your follicle stimulating hormones and luteinizing. So what does this do? They will increase the secretion of your follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing after initial stimulation, termed as flare effect. So what happens? Suddenly there will be an increase in your luteinizing hormone and your follicle stimulating hormone. So what does this do? Once this level, so body detects high level of your luteinizing hormone and follicles. So this will lead to an negative reaction. Okay, this lead to a negative, that is paradoxical effect. Okay, there will be a sudden drop in gonadotropin secretion. So what happens? To maintain the level of your follicles, so this will inhibit your secretion of gonadotropins from your growth gonadotropin regulatory hormone receptor complex, that will be inhibited. This second effect is termed as down regulation and observed only after 10 days. So once you give it after 10 days, they will try to reduce the level of your follicle stimulating and luteinizing hormone. While this phase is reversible upon stopping the medication, it can be maintained when the gonadotropin regulatory hormone agonist used in a continued for a long period of time. So this is a long-term therapy. So what happens? You give extra your when you give this hormone analogs, so it will increase the secretion of a follicle. This will cause a down regulation or negative feedback effect on your hypothalamus to stop the release later. Or it takes only after 10 days initially when the after the level reaches considerably. So that is known as luteinizing or regulatory hormone. So this is how it acts. This is the example is leuprolide and gasoverin. Okay, these are the examples of the drugs. Now next class of drug is progestin. Next class of drug is progestin. As you know, progestin are controls what? They are the precursor for the biosynthesis of all your steroidal hormones like your estrogen, testosterone, androgens, everything. Progesterone is the precursor. Okay, they have got powerful anti-androgenic and anti-estrogenic effect. This progesterone also, when we have studied individually, they have got anti-androgenic and anti-estrogenic effect. They control the effects of your androgens and estrogen and significantly lowers the expression of androgen receptor and estrogen receptors in your body. So what is it? They will control the excess of your estrogen receptor and androgen. So what happens when the estrogen receptors are reduced? So the activity of your estrogen and androgens will be reduced. This is how they can act. The anti-neoplastic action of progestin on carcinoma of the breast is affected by modifying the action of either steroidal hormone or by exerting the direct cytotoxic effect on the tumor cells. What happens when the receptors are reduced? Your estrogens will not be bind with your cancerous cells and the overexpression of cells will be controlled. This is how the progestins act. Normal progestin, it is a 21 carbon with CH2, CH3 and C double bond O. And in case of medroxy, it contains an extra methyl. See, double bond is between 4 and 5. Please, if you are not able to see it properly, there is a double bond between 4 and 5. Medroxyprogesterone contains an extra methyl group at the 6th position and an acetoxy group at the 17 beta position. Okay, so this is the two drugs which are used in your cancer which are belongs to your progestins. Now next class of drug is androgen receptor blocker. So what happens when the androgen receptor are blocked? Testosterone does not bind, does not enter the cell. So when the testosterone does not enter, when there is a blockage of action of diet on the this inhibits the synthesis of new proteins in the prostate and used in your prostate cancer cells. Okay, combined with gonadotropin regulating analogs to treat irreparable prostate cancer. Okay, this is basically used in your prostate cancer. Example is flutamide and bicanaz. So this is the structure of flutamide. Okay, so what does it contain? It contains an trifluoronitro. So nitro at the para position, trifluoro at the meta position of your anylides, okay, which is isopropyl isopropyl amide groups which are attached to your uh, nitro at the fourth and your CF3 at the meta position. So this is the structure of your flutamide, which is used basically in the treatment of prostate cancer because they block the action of dihydrosterone on your testosterone hormone. That will be blocked. So when the testosterone does not bind, so it will not further initiate your cell differentiation or transcription does not take place. So this is how the androgen receptor blockers act. Now, growth hormone regulatory agonist and antagonistic effect. So what agonist, what does it do? So it will synthesize more. Similarly, as you said, it is a negative feedback effect. And antagonist, they will block the release of your gonadal release of your follicle stimulating hormone and testosterone and luteinizing hormone from your pituitary gland. So this is how your growth hormone regulators act. Okay, gonadotropin regulator, agonistic and antagonist act. Okay, one is through negative feedback and one is through direct blocking of your release of your gonadotropin. So this is how your agonist and antagonist of your growth hormone gonadotropin receptor hormones act. The next class of drug is protein kinase. Next class of drug is protein kinase. What are these kinases? As you have studied in your biochemistry, the kinase enzymes that modifies the proteins by chemically adding phosphate group to them. That is phosphorylation. Whenever a phosphorylation occurs, that is known as kinase. The enzyme responsible for phosphorylation of anything is known as kinase. So they are known as introduction of phosphate group into your proteins by phosphorylation is done by kinase enzyme and they are known as protein kinase. The phosphate is always taken from ATP. So what is the source of your phosphate? It is ATP. So your enzyme kinase takes away one of the phosphate from your ATP and adds to your protein. So phosphorylation of proteins by kinase is an important mechanism in communicating signals within the cells. So cell signals only occur when the proteins get phosphorylated. They are known as cells transduction. That is transmission of your signals within the cells. They are responsible for signal transfer within the cells and regulatory cellular activities such as cell division. So this is very much important in your cell division. So this is the first step. If you see anything, first step is your phosphorylation in any of the mechanism. If you see anywhere, so this kinases act on the first. They act as an initiator of your cell division. Now let us see what is the use of this protein kinases in our anti-cancer therapy. So there is something called tyrosine kinase, the enzyme tyrosine kinase. Okay, is an enzyme that transfer phosphate group from ATP to the protein of the cell. Its function as an on-off switch in many cellular functions. This protein kinase, tyrosine can act as a, so if this kinase act, they will initiate or stop the cell division. They stop the cell cycle. The phosphate group is attached to the amino acid tyrosine of your protein. So this, why it is called tyrosine kinase? Because the phosphate group is attached to the tyrosine. Tyrosine is an amino acid which is present in the protein. So this tyrosine gets phosphorylated. So that's why it is called tyrosine kinase, because the tyrosine protein, amino acid in the protein gets phosphorylated. That's why it is known as tyrosine kinase. They act as an on-off switch, that is a regulator. So if it gets activated, it initiates cell division. If it is blocked, then there is no signal transduction that takes place. So this is your mechanism. Your tyrosine kinase is present, it gets phosphorylated. That leads to your, when ATP gets converted, gets added to your tyrosine kinase. So that activates your tyrosine, that leads to your cellular response, that is your cell division. So if this conversion is blocked, your activation does not take place and the cell division does not. This is how your protein kinase act. So how does this normally the cellular direct and controls the oncogenic action of your receptor kinases. What does it do? So tyrosine kinase is there. Okay, they will prevent the once this receptor blockers are present. Sorry, this conversion is prevented. So the phosphate tyrosine kinase, normally the level of cellular tyrosine kinase is tightly controlled by antagonizing the effect of your tyrosine kinase and tyrosine phosphate. So what is this? They will prevent the conversion of your tyrosine to tyrosine phosphate. And if this thing is blocked by this particular tyrosine kinase antagonist, and this will prevent your further process, that is activation of mutation and BCR. These are the different types of proteins which are responsible for your cell division, that is BCR and ABL. They are all the protein sequence which are present in your cancerous cells. They can be removed by this particular enzyme. Okay. Next class of drug is imitinab. Imitinab. What is this imitinab? This inhibits the BCR ABL tyrosine kinase. This is an example of protein kinase. Okay. So imitinab is the drug, that is example of protein kinase, tyrosine kinase. So this inhibits the BCLR ABL tyrosine kinase complex. Okay. And abnormal gene produced by the product of your Philadelphia chromosomal in chronic myeloid leukemia, that is CML. That is overall it is known as PHCML indication, that is known as Philadelphia chromosome in chronic myeloid leukemia. So this is inhibited by imitinab. So this, when imitinab binds with the ATPase, this prevents the phosphorylation of your tyrosine kinase, and thus your cellular mechanism is blocked. So what is the structure of your imitinab? So if let's go from left to right. First is your pyridine moiety. The pyridine moiety is attached to your pyrimidine, that is your 1,3-diazine, at the third of your pyridine and the sixth of your pyrazine, also of your pyrimidine. Now this is connected to an aniline moiety. This is connected to an aniline moiety with the amino at the fourth position. Okay, amino. So there is an amide. Now this aniline is connected to a N-methyl piperazine, which is connected to your phenyl by an methylene group. Okay, and connected to an amine by a carbonyl, that is an amide bond. So this is the structure. So there are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings. There are 5 rings. First ring is your pyridine. Second is your pyrimidine, which are connected directly. Okay, it's a bicyclic compound. Next is your phenyl ring, which is connected to your pyrimidine by an amino group. Okay. Next ring is your phenyl ring again, which is connected by an anilide linkage, NHC double bond O. Okay. And the third ring, last ring is your piperazine and methyl piperazine, which is connected to your phenyl ring by your methylene, that is CS2. So there are 5 rings. First you have to know the sequence. First one is your pyridine, followed by your pyrimidine, that is a bicyclic ring, biaryl compound. Now that is connected to your third one is your phenyl ring, which is connected by an amino group. Next again is your phenyl ring, which is connected by an amide linkage, NHC double bond O. The last one is your N-methyl piperazine, which is connected by an methylene group, that is CH2. This is the structure of imitinab. It inhibits your BCR ABL tyrosine kinase, okay, which is responsible for your gene transcription, okay, which is responsible for your gene, because once it gets phosphorylated, this leads to your cell division. This is how your imitinab acts. Hydroxylurea we have studied earlier. They are the ribonucleotide diphosphate reductase inhibitor that prevents your conversion of your ribonucleotide to your deoxyribonucleotide, which is necessary for your DNA synthesis. Okay, if this does, they inhibit your DNA. Next class of drug is miscellaneous drug is cisplatin. So what is this cisplatin? Cisplatin is your platinum is connected to your 2-chloro and 2-amino group. It is your platinum in between is connected to your 2-chloro and 2-amino. They are also act as an by DNA intercalation. They also act as and is an example of, you can say, as an alkylating agent. So cisplatin binds with your guanine of your DNA and RNA. So cisplatin what binds to your guanine of your DNA and RNA, that is fluorine binds to guanine of your DNA and RNA, and leads to intercalation in stabilizing by hydrogen bonding. And the molecular mechanism of action in unwinding and shortening of DNA, thus preventing. So what happens? Your splitting and recoiling of your DNA is blocked. So if splitting and recoiling of DNA is blocked, so your DNA transcription does not take place. This is how the cisplatin act. They act as an alkylating agent by forming a DNA intercalation between your guanine and your cytosine part of your DNA and RNA. Indication: cisplatin has efficacy against a wide range of neoplasm. Basically, it is given for wide first line of drug therapy for testicular, ovarian, and bladder cancer, and it's also useful for melanoma and other solid tumors. Okay, adverse effect: it has relatively little myelosuppression but can cause severe nausea, vomiting, and nephrotoxicity. Structure of platinum is very much important. Cisplatin is very much important. So interferons. So what are these interferons? So interferons are given in, as you have studied, it can be also given in as an antiviral treatment also. It can be given in antiviral treatment also. And they can be used in your anti-cancer treatment also. So what are these interferons? Interferons are smaller natural cytokines that are produced by leukocytes. Cytokines, if there anything extra enters into your body, our immune system produces cytokines to attack. Your lymphocytes produce cytokines to attack this external body. The T lymphocyte produced by your leukocyte, T lymphocyte, and fibroblasts in response to an infection and other biological stimuli. So anything external or we stimulate, interferons are secreted in our body. The goal of this interferon use is to activate tumor specific cytotoxic T lymphocytes. So what is this goal of this interferons? They will stimulate the tumor specific cytotoxic T lymphocytes. So this antibody, they will stimulate the synthesis of your antibiotics which are produced from tumor specific cytotoxic T lymph, and thus tumor cell will be destroyed based on your immunotherapy. Okay, so they act in by initiation of your increase in the building of your antibodies. Similarly, what all these antibody secretions, they will increase your antibody secretion by stimulating the release of your tumor specific cytotoxic T lymphocytes. Okay, and thus control your cell division. So interferons are classified into three, that is alpha, beta, gamma, on the basis of antigenicity, means which antigens which I have to remove. The alpha interferon primarily are leukocytic, okay, whereas the beta and gamma interferon are produced from the connective tissues of your fibroblast and T lymph. So depending upon the origin, they can be classified as alpha, beta, and gamma. Alpha interferons are produced basically from leukocytic area, whereas your beta and gamma interferons are produced by the connective tissues of fibroblast. That is your connective tissues and your lymphatic tissues. Okay. Nowadays, recombinant technology in bacteria have been made possible to produce two specific designated alpha interferon, alpha 2A and 2B, used for the treatment of your. So nowadays, through DNA recombinant technology, they have synthesized interferon alpha 2A and 2B, which is used for the treatment of your neoplastic disease, that is your cancer. Interferon alpha 2A is presently approved for treatment of hairy cell leukemia, chronic myeloid leukemia, AIDS related to Kaposi sarcoma. Okay, they are used. And interferon alpha 2B is approved for the treatment of leukemia, myeloma, AIDS related Kaposi sarcoma, and follicular lymphoma. So these are the uses. Basically, they are classified according to their origin, from where it is originated. And nowadays they are synthesized by DNA recombinant technology, where your RNAs, which are necessary for the synthesis of interferon, are put inside the bacteria, which multiply faster, and that particular sequence is removed, and that can be injected into your patients. This is through the DNA recombinant technology. This is through your DNA recombinant. And the last drug which is used is your streptozotocin. This is your streptozotocin. What is this? If you see the structure of streptozotocin, it is similar to your sugar moiety. It is similar to your sugar moiety. They are naturally occurring alkylating neoplastic agent that is toxic to insulin producing beta cells of your pancreas in male. It is a medicine used for the treatment of cancer of your pancreatic cancer. Can be treated by streptozotocin. Okay, the drug was discovered in a strain of the soil or microorganism Streptomyces acromenogens. Okay, mechanism of action: streptozotocin is a glucosamine. It's a glucosamine derivative, nitrosourea compound. Nitrosourea compound. If you can see the example, nitrosourea compound, you got an urea and a nitrosourea group, carmocetine. That's why it acts as an alkylating agent, similar to that of your carmocetine. Okay, the structure is similar to that of your it is a nitrosourea. It is toxic to the cell, causing the damage to your DNA. This is how it is an amino sugar, glucosamino sugar, which is connected to your glucosaurea. Okay, it is connected to your nitrosourea derivative. They act by carbamylating as well as alkylating agent. So this is the mechanism of action of streptozotocin, which is basically used in the treatment of pancreatic cancer. This is basically used in the treatment of your pancreatic cancer. So these are some of the cancers drugs which are used in the combination. So this is a chemotherapy combination which are usually used. So for lung cancer, doxorubicin, vincristine. So this is basic combination therapy like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cyclophosphamide, doxorubin, vincristine, and prednisolone. In case of Hodgkin's disease, you have muticin, vincristine, procarbazine, prednisolone, one combination, doxorubicin, bleomycin, vinblastine, and decar. So they are the use. Alkylating agents can be used along with your plant alkaloids and steroids. Colorectal cancer, you take 5-fluorouracil, folic acid, and oxyplantin, which is an example, which is a derivative of cisplatin. So these are some of the combinations that are used. And common toxicity as associated with the anti-cancer drugs, antineoplastic drugs, are more bone marrow depression, buccomucosal erosion, GIT, that is diarrhea, hemophilia, nausea, vomiting, loss of hair, alopecia, cardiogenic toxicity, that is cardiac toxicity, teratogenicity. It should be avoided during pregnancy because it affects your embryo, because it can pass through them. Hyperuremia, folic acid rescue means your folic acid gets reduced. It also affects your blood count also. So these are the toxicity associated with your cancer drugs. Bone marrow, oral cavity, as well as neutropenia, stomach and GIT, diarrhea, shedding, loss of cell gonads. It reduces your it causes amenorrhea and oligospermia in males. Fetus, yeah, it is teratogenic as hyperuremia. So these are some of the adverse. There's neuropathy, that is your neural signaling is also affected. So these are some of the side effects associated with your anti-cancer drug. And this is the picture of the drug. Where does it act? So this is the exact classification. In G0 is a resting place. G1 phase is hydrocortisones. Your antibiotics and all act on the G1 phase. Your purine antagonists like mercaptopurines and all, they act on the S phase. In the G2 phase, your cyclophosphamide, bleomycin, and actinomycin D acts on the G2 phase. So this is how. And in the mitotic phase, your vinblastine, vincristine, your Paxetin and Doxetal, they act on your vinblastine and on your mitotic phase of your cell. This is a schematic representation of how the drug acts on your different stages of your cell cycle. Which drug acts on which phase of your cell cycle can be represented by this slide. These are some of the extra examples of your drugs. This is how your alkylating agents act by forming a intercalation between your guanine link N9 and 7 position of your guanine. So this will prevent your splicing of your DNA. So this is how the alkylating agents act. If you can see, there is a cross linkage between your guanine and guanine in your side chain. So this is all about your anti-neoplastic agent.